Who's the Conservative Heretic? By Patrick J. Buchanan. Friday, May 20th, 2017. In his coquettish refusal to accept the Donald, Paul Ryan says he cannot betray the conservative principles of the party of Abraham Lincoln, high among which is a devotion to free trade. But when did free trade become dogma in the party of Lincoln? As early as 1832, young Abe declared, "My politics are short and sweet, like the old woman's dance. I am in favor of a national bank and a high protective tariff. These are my sentiments and political principles." Campaigning in 1844, Lincoln declared, "Give us a protective tariff, and we will have the greatest nation on earth." Abe's openness to a protective tariff in 1860 enabled him to carry Pennsylvania and the nation. As I wrote in The Great Betrayal, how American sovereignty and social justice are being sacrificed to the gods of the global economy in 1998, the great emancipator was the great protectionist. During his presidency, Congress passed and Abe signed 10 tariff bills. Lincoln inaugurated the Republican Party tradition of economic nationalism. Vermont's Justin Merrill, who shepherded GOP tariff bills through Congress from 1860 to 1898, declared, "I am for ruling America for the benefit first of Americans and for the rest of mankind afterwards." In 1890, Republicans enacted the McKinley Tariff that bore the name of that chairman of Ways and Means and future president. Open competition between high-paid American labor and poorly paid European labor, warned Congressman William McKinley, will either drive out of existence American industry or lower American wages. Too few Republicans of McKinley's mindset sat in Congress when NAFTA and MFN for China were being enacted. In the 1895 History of the Republican Party, the authors declare, "The Republican Party is the party of protection that carries the banner of protection proudly. Under protectionist policies from 1865 to 1900, U.S. debt was cut by 2/3. Customs duties provided 58% of revenue, save for President Cleveland's 2% tax, which was declared unconstitutional. There was no income tax. Commodity prices fell 58%. Real wages, despite a doubling of the population, rose 53%. Growth in GDP averaged over 4% a year. Industrial production rose almost 5% a year. The U.S. began the era with half of Britain's production and ended up with twice Britain's production." In McKinley's first term, the economy grew 7% a year. After his assassination, Vice President Theodore Roosevelt took over. His reaction to Ryan's free trade ideology, in a word, disgust. Pernicious indulgence in the doctrine of free trade seems inevitably to produce fatty degeneration of the moral fiber, wrote the Rough Rider. "I thank God I am not a free trader." When the GOP returned to power after President Wilson, they enacted the Fordney-McCumber Tariff of 1922. For the next 5 years, the economy grew 7% a year, while the Smoot-Hawley Tariff, signed 8 months after the crash of '29, was blamed for the Depression. Nobel laureate Milton Friedman ferreted out the real perp, the Federal Reserve. The Republican platform from 1884 to 1944 professed the party's faith in protection. Free trade was introduced by the party of Woodrow Wilson and FDR. Our modern free trade era began with the Trade Expansion Act of 1962. Among the 8 no votes in the Senate were Barry Goldwater and Prescott Bush. Even in recent crises, Republican presidents have gone back to the economic nationalism of their grand old party. With the Brits coming for our gold and Japanese imports piling up, President Nixon in 1971 closed the gold window and imposed a 10% tariff on Japanese goods. Ronald Reagan slapped 50% tariff on Japanese motorcycles being dumped here to kill Harley Davidson. Then put quotas on Japanese auto imports and on steel and machine tools. Reagan was a conservative of the heart. Though a free trader, he always put America first. What then does history teach? The economic nationalism and protectionism of Hamilton, Madison, Jackson, and Henry Clay, and the party of Lincoln, McKinley, Teddy Roosevelt, and Coolidge, of all 4 presidents on Mount Rushmore, made America the greatest and most self-sufficient republic in history. In the free trade, one worldism with Bush 1, Clinton, Bush 2, and Obama enabled communist China to shoulder us aside and become the world's #1 manufacturing power. Like Britain, after free trade was adopted in the mid-19th century, when scribblers like David Ricardo, James Mill, and John Stuart Mill, and evangelists like Richard Cobden dazzled political elites with their visions of the future, America has been in a long, steady decline. If we look more and more like the British Empire in its twilight years, it is because we were converted to the same free trade faith that was dismissed as utopian folly by the men who made America. Where in the history of great nations, Britain before 1850, the USA, Bismarck, Germany, post-war Japan, and China today, has nationalism not been the determinant factor in economic policy? Speaker Ryan and Professor Mark Levin, you should read more history and less Ayn Rand.